Howdy, y'all. It's the Gremlin here to tell you about all the stuff going on with a special coterie here in San Padre. I've taken an interest in them recently, as they've shown some promise. I guess first, it would be proper to give introductions to my little lab rats. First, there's Brody Chompy. He's a typical Ventru business type. He's filthy rich and owns two clubs, the Shack, where the coterie usually meets up at, and Dusk, a cabaret norte playa. He has a lot of other businesses, but let's not worry about that too much. What is important is that Brody has been around a while. When the cam first came in, he was one of the first recruits in the starting years. Then there's Jack Harris. He's the other venture of the group. He's a real gambler, this one. He came from Phantom City. Word is that the prince over in the New Mexican city lost a bet to him, and instead of paying up, he called a hit. Jack got out, and he got the message successfully in time, and now he's new in town. Next, we have Michelle Vulcan. She's always got her nose in one of her books. It's pretty impressive that she sees anything going on outside of her home. It's basically a freaking library. Anyways, word is that she follows the teachings of Karna and is an independent kindred lady. She also really wants to find some guy named Michael Vulcan as well. I'm all for family, but sometimes you just gotta play it easy. Josiah is a real pretty one. I say this is a guy who can appreciate a pretty boy. The thing is he tries to hide it a bit by dressing down. But when you can make a paper bag look good, it's a real challenge. Anyways, he's got some skill with sneaking up on people, so I won't say too much more about him. The one thing you gotta know about him is that he hates his sire. Apparently the bastard turned him, then abandoned him, and it's just some ugly business overall, let me tell you. Waylon, well, he's one of those rough and tumble gangrel. He's the equivalent of a vampiric vegetarian. I get the feeling that he'd much rather be out in the country or in a wood shop than in the confines of a city. But he knows, as well as any of us, that there are nastier creatures out in the woods, and we don't want any of that if we can help it. So, the story so far. We start out with the night of Founders Day party. The Prince, Eduardo de Leon, a blue blood, threw an Elysium party at the Pompadour. It was one of those be there, find the sign kind of events, so you had to kind of show. So, with the exception of the ministry, the only group who was permitted to be openly anarch in the city, everyone had to show and present a gift to the prince. Would you believe the grand ballroom they held in was actually made to be a replica of the Titanic's grand ballroom? Pretty impressive stuff. The coterie decided the gift they would give the prince was a bloodstone that could track people that Michelle could make. They also had to introduce Jack, Josiah, and Waylon to the prince. Introductions out of the way, the prince forced Michelle to agree to making 2 bloodstones for him instead. This also meant Michelle had to meet with her primogen, a pompous Tremere named Cosimo. He told her that the chancery was open only to folks who declared themselves loyal to House Tremere and dismissed any other Tremere houses. She was offered knowledge, but she didn't want to take it under duress. She was also given a premonition by a Malkavian that involved going down a creepy path, or an unbeaten path, or she could also go down the more tried path of Camarilla, which seems easier but had more restrictions to it. She wasn't quite cool with it. They mingled a bit, Brody chatting it up with some of the city's most elite people, and the rest taking in the scene, which included Giuseppe, the primogen for the Bruja, hanging out with a retinue of gangrel and Brujas themselves. He's only Camarilla by forced association, and most of the city knows he supports the anarch movement pretty regularly. The seneschal Maximilian Gerard was there as well for the Ventru, which means that he's probably the most powerful kindred beyond my sire, Hera Medusae, who was there as well, primogen of the noble Nosferatu. The Toreador primogen, Han, surrounded herself with her artistic coterie, and the scourge Victoria Smith was there in biker's leathers. Even though the gangrel had no primogen, they served as a fist for the Camarilla in the city. Anyways, all was going well until the prince came down the stairs and declared that Bruno, a gangrel, was doomed to the final death via blood hunt after the party. He showed a few clips of video where some kind shot Bruno. He frenzied and killed the human. Displaying his fangs and all that stuff is pretty ugly. Well, anyways, the video wasn't even public, but the prince was claiming it was a breach of masquerade and wanted his death. Giuseppe declared that while the blood hunt was valid, anyone wanting to take out Bruno would have to go through his retinue first. He stormed out with all the force of a thundercloud. Let me tell you, it's pretty tense. he said himself is pretty much bullshit. Most of the city rested uneasy that evening. The next night, the coterie grouped up again, with the exception of Josiah, who was off attending other personal matters. They discussed events of the prior night, and Michelle visited Mystique, responding to an ad in the Current. Basically, the followers of Karna started their own little chantry as a protest to the one that the other Tremere had. From one of my associates, I heard she even borrowed a few books. Anyways, the coterie met at the Shack, Brody's nightclub, where Bobcat Jones, the sheriff of the city, caused a bit of disruption by sitting in the soldier section. Brody, knowing that Bobcat was a wily kindred and understanding is more of a power ploy than anything else, took it in stride. Bobcat told them that there was someone on their turf causing a breach of the masquerade. He could handle it himself, but he wanted to give the crew a chance to resolve it. They took the opportunity and investigated the scene of the crime. They found the culprit, a woman named Violet, who had been turned without being taught anything. She told them the man she killed was trying to assault and maybe even rape her, and it was in self-defense. The coterie decided they would take her to the Scourge, Victoria Smith, to be dealt with. They planned to go to the temple later that evening anyways, so they kind of brought her along. It's one of the premier nightclubs run by the ministry. As luck would happen, Victoria was going to be there that night. If you haven't been to the temple before, it's quite a sight. It's a speakeasy club. If you don't know it's there, you might never find it. Inside it's real fancy. Room to dance, private corners cordoned off by fine silk, plush carpet. It's real nice. It's run by Nipa Mekmet, an beautiful member of the ministry. But not only is she beautiful, she's deadly. Even the prince is scared of her. I don't even want to mess with her, so I'm going to keep quiet on that one. Shortly after showing up, Josiah and Michelle ended up buggering off to go ahead and make copies of the SD card that Josiah had gotten earlier that evening. And the rest of the party proceeded to go about their own things. There, they saw a card game being played by Giuseppe, Maximilian, Bruno, and this girl there that Jack seemed to know. I don't know her, but somehow she seemed to make my non-existent hair stand on end with the heebie-jeebies. Well, all's going well. The group turned in Violet, not knowing what was going to happen to her. Then some punks tried to shoot up the club. Some damn scary dude with a sharp stick put the first one in torpor, and the coterie and Bruno took care of the other two, with the fourth of the coterie still cowering in the corner, some sort of Malkavian, I believe. The prince won't be happy about the killings, but Maximilian reminded everybody this was not Camarilla grounds, and that the folks needed to behave themselves. Anyways, Max and Brody went upstairs to talk for a bit about some boring then true business. Jack and Waylon helped clean up and try to decide what to do with the Malkavian that remained, while he climbed up onto a box and started singing Panama quite poorly. Being one of those guys who likes music, I left before my ears began to bleed. Well, that's about it. Check in on these licks at your convenience, and thanks for checking me out.